The December wind cut through downtown Seattle like a blade, carrying with it the bitter promise of another harsh night. Marcus pulled his thin jacket tighter around his shoulders as he settled onto the cold concrete steps of the abandoned storefront, the same spot he'd claimed for the past 3 weeks. The cardboard beneath him did little to cushion the unforgiving stone, but it was better than nothing. Round him, the city moved with purposeful urgency, people hurrying home to warm dinners and soft beds, their breath forming small clouds in the frigid air. At 38, Marcus had never imagined his life would lead him here. 6 months ago, he'd been a project manager at a construction company, living in a modest apartment in Capitol Hill. Then came the diagnosis: type 2 diabetes, followed by mounting medical bills his insurance barely covered. When the company downsized, Marcus was among the first to go. The dominoes fell quickly after that: missed rent payments, eviction notices, and finally, the streets. He'd learned to make himself invisible during the day, moving from coffee shops to libraries to stay warm, but evenings were the hardest. The shelters filled up fast, and Marcus's pride often kept him from the soup kitchens. Tonight was no different. He sat hunched over, trying to conserve body heat, watching the endless stream of people who looked right through him. That's when he noticed her. She couldn't have been more than 12, with tangled auburn hair poking out from beneath a wear-upon cap that had seen better days. Her oversized coat hung loose on her small frame, and her worn sneakers had holes that let in the cold. She was dragging a large duffel bag behind her, pausing every few steps to catch her breath. What struck Marcus most wasn't her obvious poverty, it was the fact that she was completely alone. The girl glanced around nervously before approaching the alley next to where Marcus sat. She disappeared into the shadows, and he heard the rustle of plastic and cardboard. After several minutes, she emerged, having shed the heavy bag. In her arms was a tattered blanket, faded blue with cartoon characters he couldn't quite make out in the dim streetlight. She stood there for a moment, seeming to gather courage, then walked directly toward him. Marcus tensed, unsure of her intentions. In his time on the streets, he'd learned to be wary of everyone, even children. You look cold, mister, she said softly, her voice barely audible above the wind. You can use my blanket. Marcus stared at her in shock. The blanket she held out to him was clearly precious to her, probably one of the few possessions she had left. Yet here she was, offering it to a complete stranger. I can't take that, he said, his voice rough from the cold and disuse. You need it more than I do. The girl shook her head firmly. I've got my sleeping bag. Besides, I'm used to the cold. You look like you might freeze. There was something in her eyes, an old soul wisdom that didn't belong in. Someone so young that made Marcus realize she wasn't going to take no for an answer. Reluctantly, he accepted the blanket and immediately felt its worn softness envelop him with surprising warmth. What's your name? He asked. Riley, she replied, settling down on the step beside him, leaving a respectful distance between them. What's yours? Marcus. He studied her face in the amber glow of the streetlight. Riley. Where are your parents? Her expression darkened. Gone. Been on my own for about 2 months now. The simple statement hit Marcus like a punch to the gut. 2 months. This child had been surviving on the streets for 2 months. Where have you been staying? Different places. The underpass when it rains. That doorway over there when the security guard isn't around. Sometimes the all-night laundromat. She spoke matter-of-factly, as if discussing the weather. Marcus felt a familiar knot form in his stomach, the same feeling he'd had watching his younger sister struggle as a single mother years ago. That's not safe for someone your age. Riley shrugged. Nowhere's really safe. But I'm careful. I keep to myself, don't cause trouble. They sat in companionable silence for a while, watching the late-night crowd thin out. Marcus found himself studying this remarkable child who had shown him more kindness in 5 minutes than most people had in months. He thought about his own journey to the streets, how shame and pride had isolated him from friends and family who might have helped. Here was someone with every reason to be bitter and selfish, yet she'd offered her only blanket to a stranger. Are you hungry? Marcus asked suddenly. He had exactly $4.73 in his pocket money he'd been saving for breakfast, but something compelled him to share it. Riley's eyes lit up despite her attempt to appear nonchalant. A little. Marcus stood, the blanket still wrapped around his shoulders. Come on, there's a McDonald's a few blocks over that stays open late. My treat. You don't have to. You shared your blanket. Let me share what I can. The walk to McDonald's revealed more of Riley's story. She'd been in foster care for 3 years. After her mother died of an overdose, the latest placement had been with a family who saw her as nothing more than a paycheck. When the husband started coming into her room at night, Riley ran. She'd been living on the streets ever since, too afraid of the system to seek help. I know people think kids like me don't have choices, she said as they sat in the warm restaurant, sharing a burger and fries, but sometimes staying is more dangerous than leaving. Marcus nodded, understanding all too well how circumstances could force impossible decisions. As they ate, he told her about his own fall from grace, the job loss, the medical bills, the crushing weight of starting over in middle age. Do you have family? Riley asked. A sister in Portland. We haven't talked in 2 years though. Pride's a stupid thing sometimes. He paused, watching Riley carefully wrap half her burger in napkins. Saving that for later? She nodded. Habit. You never know when you'll eat again. The simple statement broke something open. In Marcus's chest, this child was hoarding food while he wallowed in self-pity about his wounded pride. She'd given him her blanket while he'd been too embarrassed to call his sister, who'd offered help multiple times. When they returned to their spot, Riley retrieved her sleeping bag from the alley and set up what Marcus now realized was a well-practiced routine. She arranged cardboard for insulation, positioned her bag to block the wind, and created a small barrier with her duffel bag. You've done this before, he observed. You learn fast or you don't make it, she replied, then looked at him seriously. Marcus, can I ask you something? Sure. Why don't you call your sister? The question hung in the cold air between them. Marcus had asked himself the same thing countless times, always finding excuses. Lisa had always been the successful one, the college graduate, the suburban house, the perfect family. How could he face her now, broken and homeless? It's complicated, he said finally. Is it? Or are you just scared? The honesty in her voice was devastating. Here was a 12-year-old who'd survived things no child should face, and she was calling him out on his fears. Maybe I am scared, he admitted. Being scared is okay, but freezing to death because you're too scared to ask for help is just dumb. Despite everything. Marcus laughed. When did you get so wise? When you've got nothing left but yourself. You figure out pretty quick what matters and what doesn't. That night, wrapped in Riley's blanket while she slept peacefully in her sleeping bag nearby, Marcus stared up at the stars barely visible through the city's glow. This child had shown him something he'd forgotten in his months of despair, that kindness wasn't about what you had, but about what you were willing to share. She had almost nothing, yet she'd given freely. She faced dangers he couldn't imagine, yet she maintained hope and compassion. As morning broke over the city, Marcus made a decision. He woke Riley gently and handed her back the blanket. I want you to keep it, she protested. I need you to hold onto it for me, he said. I'm going to make a phone call, and I want to make sure you're warm while I'm gone. Riley studied his face, then smiled, the first real smile he'd seen from her. You're going to call your sister? I'm going to call my sister. Marcus walked to the payphone outside the corner store, his hands shaking as he dialed the familiar number. When Lisa answered, her voice thick with sleep, Marcus almost hung up. Lisa, it's Marcus. Marcus? Oh my God, where have you been? I've been so worried. I need help, he said, the words coming easier than he'd expected. I'm in Seattle, and I need help. I'll be on the next plane, she said without hesitation. Where are you staying? Marcus looked back toward the steps where Riley sat wrapped in her blanket, watching him with curious eyes. It's a long story, Lisa, but there's someone I want you to meet. Asterisk the conversation lasted 20 minutes. Lisa would arrive that afternoon with plane tickets back to Portland, where Marcus could stay with her family while he got back on his feet. She'd already started researching treatment programs for his diabetes and job placement services. Asterisk when Marcus returned to Riley, she was carefully folding her blanket. Asterisk good news, she asked. Asterisk very good news. My sister's coming to get me. He sat down beside her. But I can't leave you here alone. Asterisk Riley's face fell slightly. I'll be okay. I always am. Asterisk no, you won't. And I won't let that happen. Marcus had made another decision during his phone call with Lisa. I told my sister about you. She wants to meet you. Asterisk I'm not going into the system again.